Mother's Day is around the corner and I've got 5 awesome gift ideas that you can make with laser engraving and 3D printing. Plus, xTool has offered to do an exclusive giveaway for this video where for a first place prize, you can win an xTool F1 Lite, a second place prize of $500 cash, and 3 third place prizes of $300 cash. Of course, you don't have to purchase anything to enter. It's a very easy 3-step process that I'm gonna reveal through this video, so you have to pay attention. xTool will be picking the winners and announcing them on their Instagram page on May 20th. I'm gonna put all of the details in the video description down below. Go check that out, and let's get started on this video. We're going to be focusing heavily on the laser engraving aspect of these projects, and I'm going to be using the xTool F1 Ultra in most cases. However, you can also use the regular size F1 or even the S1 if you have the IR laser module for some of these tasks. When using the F1 Ultra, you'll see that I have these F1 to F1 Ultra fixture adapters that allow me to use regular size F1 fixtures on the Ultra base plate, and I can put one in the center or create a 2x2 grid pattern for batch processing. I get a lot of questions about these parts, so I figured I would just explain them once ahead of time instead of each and every time I use them. And finally, as with all laser projects, please work safely and use some sort of fume filtration system to protect the air that you breathe. We'll keep it fairly simple with this first project, and we'll be doing these heart-shaped charms. And you can engrave anything you want on these, a personalized message, a name, perhaps a birth date of a child, or even a photo. We'll run through a couple examples, and I'll be doing these on the xTool F1 Ultra, and I'm going to be using one of my heart-shaped fixtures in order to help us locate each of the work pieces. This fixture fits 3 different size heart-shaped charms. The first is a 25mm heart from xTool, and the other one is another 25mm heart, which is slightly different in shape, and the last one is a 17mm heart-shaped charm, and those two I'll put links to in the video description down below. Some of these come in different finishes like silver or rose gold, so you can pick whichever one you prefer. Then we're going to set the focus to the top of our first charm, and sometimes with reflective surfaces, I like to use a piece of paper to make sure that the 2 dots are properly aligned. Then we can head into xTool Creative Space, and you can see that I have my fixture template in place. If you guys get the fixture from my website, all of them come with the digital template. And you just import the digital template as a regular image and disable the output. Now for this heart-shaped fixture, we need to make sure that the digital template is in the correct position in the workspace so that it lines up with the physical fixture in the F1 Ultra work area. So you can see that I use the basic shapes to draw a heart, place it over the center heart in the digital template, set my framing button to outline, and now I've got it framed, and I'm going to make sure that it lines up perfectly with the center heart in the actual F1 Ultra workspace, and if it doesn't, then we can use Ctrl-A on our keyboard to select the template and that heart, move them around, and continue to frame them until we're happy with the position, and once we are, we can right-click on the template and lock it in place. After that, I got rid of the heart-shaped object because we're not going to need that anymore, and now I'm simply just using the text tool to create a customized text. And in this case, I'm going to keep things simple, and I'm just going to put mom. But you can write any message that you want that's going to fit on your charm. After that, I'll select the material in the xTool Easy Set Material library, and I'll search for heart. And in this case, because one of these hearts is an actual xTool product, they've got the silver stainless steel hearts inside of the material library. Now these hearts can be processed with both the blue laser as well as the fiber laser. We'll go through one example of each, but personally, I prefer the fiber laser for these things because the results are more consistent. With the blue laser, you can achieve various colors on stainless steel, but I just find that you don't always get the color that you're looking for. So now I'm just going to quickly resize and reposition this text, and I'm going to take a copy of that and I'm going to bring it up to the top left hand corner because I want to quickly show you guys how you would go about doing this if you were running an entire batch of these things. So if you don't already know, on the left hand side in the applications, you can do a grid array. So the graphic that you had selected, it's now going to be multiplied by the number of columns and rows, and then you can set the spacing in between each of those rows and columns. For this example, I'm not going to be doing a full grid array, so I'll just copy that text, I'll move it to the 3 hearts on the left and right hand side of the center one, and I'll change the text over to some initials. So what you can do here is perhaps put the initials of your children and their birthdays on the other side, and that would make a great gift for a mother. You can see now that I've also taken a picture of the workspace using the F1 Ultra camera. I'm going to select all 3 of these pieces of text. I'm going to switch this over to the fiber laser for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Now I'm ready to get this job processed, and again, this is just a very simple example. You guys can get as creative as you want with whatever you're going to put on these personalized charms. I just really want to take you guys through the workflow of each of these examples, so it doesn't matter if you're running one personalized charm or pendant or an entire batch of them, you can work as efficiently and pain-free as possible. And speaking of efficiency, the wonderful thing about using fixtures is that I can just flip those charms over, nothing has moved. So if I go back into xTool Creative Space, I can set up some new text and position it right over the old stuff because we know it's going to line up perfectly. You really only have to do the initial alignment setup once and you're good to go for the rest of your jobs. Now for this one, I'm going to be using the blue laser. And as I mentioned earlier, the results aren't always consistent from my experience, so you can see that I had selected the settings for what should have been purple, but in my case, they came out blue. And it's still going to look really nice, so if you guys want to experiment with the blue laser, go for it. Now, if you guys are looking to do large batches of these things with my F1 to F1 Ultra fixture adapters, you can set them up in a 2x2 grid array, so you can set up 4 times as many fixtures in a single job. Now we'll do a very quick example with one of these 17mm charms. Now, despite it being much smaller, the detail that you can achieve on the F1 Ultra is pretty impressive. So I'm going to scale down this text and I'm going to fit it inside of the red outline heart, and that would represent the smaller 17mm pendant. I've gone ahead and also switched back to the fiber laser settings so we can get those nice consistent results. And you'll notice that on this particular charm, I'm using one that is more of a rose gold color. I ended up using the exact same settings that I'd used on the silver stainless steel pendants, and the results were very nice. And finally, we'll do one more example here where we have an image, and in this case, it's going to be a dog. Perhaps you know somebody who is a dog mom who really wants a nice Mother's Day gift. And so I've imported this dog image and I'm going to size it down so it fits into the smaller heart. And you can also see in the object list that I had drawn a heart-shaped vector. With the vector above the image, I can go into the object list, select them both, and then right-click and create mask. And that will crop the dog image to fit inside of that heart shape. And finally, with the dog image selected, you can select the Adjust tool and make any adjustments to the brightness, contrast, or grayscale properties of the image to make it more suitable for laser engraving. If I was engraving this on a black colored pendant, I might even want to invert the image. Since we're doing this one on a rose gold colored 17mm heart pendant, I'm going to go into xTool Easy Set Material Library and I'm going to find something that is also rose gold colored. In this case, I found this stainless steel rose gold colored heart and bar shaped necklace. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and add it to xTool Creative Space. You'll notice that this dog image is not a vector image, it's a raster image. So instead of the usual just power and speed settings, there will be a few extra settings. But I haven't touched any of those, and xTool makes it very easy with the Easy Set Material Library to get the optimal results on these materials. You can see the nice looking result here, and what's very cool about these polished surfaces is that depending on the angle that you look at these images, you can see different details. And that was done with the fiber laser, but perhaps if I had done it with the blue laser, some of that image could have come out in different colors, which would also be a very nice looking effect. And once you're done engraving those charms, you can attach them to a very nice looking bracelet or necklace. I'll put a link to a very affordable example in the video description down below. And if you have access to a 3D printer to enhance this project and gift even more, you may want to consider 3D printing some kind of a display holder for the jewelry or even a jewelry box. And if you guys are looking to enter that contest that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, step 1 to entering the contest is liking this video. And optionally, you don't have to subscribe, but if you did, I would really appreciate it. Next up, let's put together a personalized gift for a mother that loves to read. I'm going to be engraving these designs on acrylic bookmarks, and again, we're going to be using the xTool F1 Ultra. I'm going to put links in the video description down below where you can find these exact pre-cut acrylic bookmarks. Now my F1 to F1 Ultra fixture adapter was not designed with these acrylic bookmarks in mind, but we can get creative here. So you can see that I've unscrewed 2 of them, and I've used some other holes on the F1 Ultra base plate to reposition them and rotate them. I've got the bookmark constrained so that it can't move. I'm going to use that white piece of paper again to set the focus to the top of the black acrylic bookmark, and in xTool Creative Space, I'm going to be selecting 3mm black opaque glossy acrylic. I've also gone ahead and imported one of my graphics. I've rotated it 90 degrees, and I made sure that I got it facing the right way with respect to the orientation of the bookmark. Now those purple shapes that you've seen in there, they were part of that vector graphic. I've gone ahead and deleted those because I don't need them, and I'll just draw a simple rectangle that we can use to frame this entire job. And this will kind of act like my digital template so that I know that the graphic is going to line up perfectly on top of the acrylic bookmark. You can also see that I changed the layer of my graphic to the red layer so it's more visible on top of that black bookmark. And before sending this design off to be processed, you should also note that I disabled the output of that rectangle because of course we just want to process the graphic. And for those of you guys with a fiber laser, if you've never engraved on black acrylic, you should really give it a try because the results are outstanding. The black acrylic turns a very bright white with the fiber laser, and it almost looks like it's been screen printed. Now we're going to do the back side of this black acrylic bookmark, and you can see that I've just placed it back on top of the F1 Ultra base plate. And even with my makeshift fixturing setup, I know it's going to be exactly in the same place as before. And I can just take my new graphic and position it with confidence, knowing that it's going to line up perfectly on the back side of this black acrylic bookmark. And the backside here turned out looking very nice as well. And I want to encourage you guys to get as creative as possible with the messages and images that you can put on these things. One other idea is perhaps to put a quote from your mother's favorite book on a bookmark. I think that could be a very thoughtful idea. Now I'm going to run through one more example, and in this case, we're going to be working with mirrored acrylic. This one has a bit of a rose gold finish and both sides are mirrored. If one side was not reflective, I would try to engrave on the non-mirrored side and just mirror my image, but in this case I don't have that option, and I have heard some reports of people who have damaged their laser modules by working with highly reflective materials where the laser will bounce back and damage the laser module of the machine. Now, I've never had that personally happen to me, but I just want to put that out there that working with these highly reflective materials is a use at your own risk use case. xTool does have mirrored acrylic in the Easy Set library, so that's what I've gone ahead and chose for the material, and I'm just going to be using their standard settings. And those settings worked very well for me, and this thing looks fantastic. There are, however, a couple things to note. So with the mirrored acrylic, you will not be able to engrave the backside because this exact image will get burned right through the reflective layer, and you can see that it actually also burned right into the base plate of my F1 Ultra. So if you're working with mirrored acrylic, you may want to put some protective material underneath of it so that it doesn't burn that image onto the base plate of your machine. But otherwise, these things turned out great. And now we're on to step 2 of entering that contest, and that would be to post a comment down below in the comment section. I want you to tell me what kind of laser project you'd like to see me cover in the next video. Now we're moving on to project number 3, and this one is going to be an edge-lit acrylic sign. And because for this project we're going to be working with clear acrylic, it's not so suitable to use the F1 Ultra, and for this it's best to be using a CO2 laser, so I'll be using the xTool P2S. You may have noticed in the project preview that there was an opaque looking screen in front of the clear acrylic, and that's what we're going to process first. So you can see that inside of the P2S, I've loaded in a piece of 3mm thick basswood, and I've selected that as my material. Now I've also brought in my graphic. My graphic consists of 2 layers. The first layer is the black layer, which you see is going to be processed on this basswood, and this is the opaque screen. The second layer was on the blue layer, and that was the circular graphic in the middle, and I'm going to hide that and disable that, and that's the one that we're going to do on the piece of acrylic in a moment. But for now, I've set this first layer to cut. You'll notice that it's an outline, so it's not being engraved. This is a through cut through the 3mm thick basswood. The overall size of the graphic is 200mm tall by 300mm wide, and you can see there were some very small strips cut off the top of this piece of wood. And now we're on to the acrylic. I just so happen to have a piece of 200mm by 300mm clear acrylic, and I placed it right in the exact same spot as I had with the piece of basswood. So now all I need to do is disable the through cut layer and bring back the circular graphic in the middle and enable that one. I'm going to change my material over to 3mm clear acrylic. And this circular Happy Mother's Day graphic in the middle is going to be set to engrave. I'll be using all of the settings within xTool's Easy Set material library, so I haven't had to touch anything, and I'll send this job off to be processed. Now, unfortunately, I did lose the video footage of this thing being processed on the P2S, but you can see the final result here. I think it looks really sharp, and if I had to do it again, I might experiment with solid acrylic for that front screen instead of the basswood. Now, if you guys are wondering what I'm using to light up this sign, I've got these kits available on my website that come with a high quality LED bar, power supply, and all the brackets and everything you need to make a nice edge-lit sign that's 300mm wide. 3mm thick acrylic slots right in, and there's a second slot available for things like a screen, like I just showed you in this exact project. In this case, I've got the screen in front of the acrylic, but you could flip the thing around if you wanted to have a backdrop instead. Next, we're going to combine 3D printing with laser engraving to produce one of these very interesting looking trophy style LED vases. We'll begin with the engraving, and you'll notice at the bottom of this vase there was a brass nameplate. And since we're back working with the F1 Ultra, brass should be no problem. And I've got one of these fixtures here where we can process 4 of these nameplates at once. These things are awesome for trophies and any personalized gift, and I'll put a link in the video description to where I got these exact solid brass nameplates. And as with all of our previous examples, one of the first steps we're going to take is we're going to set our focus to the top of the brass material. Now we can hop into xTool Creative Space, and because we're using one of my fixtures, I've got the digital template loaded into our work area. The nameplates themselves are a simple rectangle, and so what we can do here is draw a rectangle using the basic shapes, set it to the exact size of the nameplates, in this case 75mm wide by 25mm tall, and place it on top of one of the nameplate spaces on the template. Then we can press the framing button, and of course the goal here is to line up the rectangle with the outline of the brass nameplate. And while the machine is framing, we can press Ctrl-A on our keyboard, select both the rectangle and the template, and move it around until we're in perfect alignment. And then we can lock our template in place, get rid of that rectangle, and disable the output of the template. You can see here I've also added some text, something simple, Mother's Day 2025. And if I were producing many of these, I would just simply use the grid array application to create multiple instances of my text. And in this case, I would only need 1 column and 4 rows. But for now, I'm only going to be producing 1 nameplate, so I'll select 3 out of the 4 pieces of text, and I'll just simply disable the output of those. Up at the top, you can also see that I've got my material selected. In this case, I've selected a brass coin. Of course, these aren't coins, but they are supposedly solid brass, so this should work. Before making this video, I went through a bit of a trial and error process of making several nameplates to get the best results, and I found that before doing any engraving, the first step on them was to actually score the text. I'll be using the fiber IR laser with 100% power, speed set to 50mm per second, and I'll hit it with 2 passes with the frequency cranked up to 60 kHz. This should give us a very nice, crisp, and defined outline for our text to work with, and then we're going to engrave inside of that. So I'll leave the nameplate exactly where it is, I will not touch it, and then back in xTool Creative Space, I'll switch over to engraving, keep the power at 100%, take the speed down to 12mm per second, lines per centimeter at 300, frequency still at 60 kHz, and then I'll go into the advanced settings and I'll play around a little bit with the engraving angle. I enabled the crosshatch setting, and I think you may want to play around with the engraving angle because you'll notice with these brass tags that under some viewing angles, the text looks dark, and other viewing angles, it looks lighter. I'll be honest, I haven't exactly nailed down how to control this, so it could again be that engraving angle, or perhaps even the grain of the brass tags, or both. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Now these tags have an adhesive backing, and I'm going to be attaching that to one of these trophy bases that I 3D printed. Now if you have a 3D printer, I'm going to make the design file available for free. You'll find a link in the video description down below, and if you don't have a printer, not to worry, I'm going to have printed versions available on my website. They fit these wooden LED bases, and I'll put links to those in the video description down below as well. Some of them are RGB, which, like this one, will cycle through the various colors, while there should be other options available, such as cool and warm white light. In addition to the trophy base, I'll also make the 3D model available for free for this very cool looking vase, and this one I printed in clear PLA so the light would shine through. Congratulations, you've made it this far through the video. The third step in the process of entering that xTool giveaway is to visit the link in the video description down below to the xTool website. And that is where you can enter your information so xTool will know how to contact you if you win one of the big prizes. And last but not least, let's engrave some crystal glass. Not all glass is the same, and I'm going to have a future video diving into engraving various types of glass, but with crystal glass, it has the amazing ability to bounce light around, and this makes it perfect for these crystal glass trophies that you can light up with an LED underneath. Now, I was going to process these on the P2S as the CO2 laser will get absorbed by the glass and it does a great job of engraving. However, part of the base of these trophies are glued together and I could not get those apart, and I determined that the P2S laser head was going to interfere and hit that base, so instead we're going to be doing these on the F1 Ultra. Now on the F1 Ultra, it's got a blue diode laser which normally would pass right through that glass and not mark it. In order to get the blue diode laser to engrave the glass, we're going to be using this laser marking paper. Now you can use the F1 Ultra, you could use the xTool S1 with the 20 watt or 40 watt blue diode laser on that one, and I'm going to put links to the crystal trophies as well as this laser marking paper in the video description down below. In my future glass engraving video, I'll also experiment with other coatings such as the chalkboard style black paint, but to keep things brief in this video, I'll show how it's going to work with the laser marking paper. And you can also see that I've got the crystal trophy placed inside of another one of my fixtures. And so just like all of the other examples inside of xTool Creative Space, I've first imported the digital template. I've got my focus set to the proper height. I'll disable the output of the digital template, and then I'm going to bring in my design file. And in this case, I'll be selecting a circular graphic, and I'll spend some time resizing it and positioning it precisely in the middle of the crystal trophy. I actually bought two of these trophies. One of them I used strictly for experimenting with the power and speed settings, and what I found with at least this laser marking paper is that the best settings for crystal glass was 50% power at 225 millimeters per second, and the lines per centimeter is quite low at 140. And this is because crystal glass tends to crack and shatter. If you end up using too much power or you go too slow, you'll end up with large pieces of glass fracturing off of the surface, and you're not going to get that frosted engraved look that we're going for. Now, one of the other things about crystal glass is that I personally find that I prefer to view the graphic through the glass. So in this case, my graphic is more or less symmetrical from left to right, so you're not going to notice a huge difference, but if I had text that you could read better one way from the other, then it would be a good idea to mirror it horizontally. Therefore, when viewing it through the glass on the backside, the text would of course go in the right direction and you would be able to read it and it wouldn't look reflected. And while we're watching this engraving process go down, I would like to bring up the fact that during all of these video clips, I do have the protective cover of the F1 Ultra in the upwards position. I would not recommend doing it this way, hopefully for obvious reasons, especially considering that a lot of the materials that we're working with in this video are reflective. All of the fixtures and materials that I've shown you will comfortably fit inside of the F1 Ultra and the lid will close, so I would recommend doing it that way. However, if you need the lid open for some reason, definitely wear some laser safety glasses. With the engraving job complete, you can see what it looks like on this side with the marking paper, and as I turn this thing around, you can see that the text looks a little more normal based on that type of script, and you'd read it again through the glass. And not only does it look better this way when we're going to light this thing up with an LED, but also with the laser marking paper, specifically this black one, once you remove this paper, some of that engraving on the front side still looks a little bit dark or black. And when you view it through the glass on the back side, it's that frosted white look that I really like. And I'll show you a close-up of that here so you can see that we were looking through the glass, and now at this point here I've got it flipped around where you can see some of the remnants of the black laser marking paper still on there that you'd have to really aggressively scrub to get off, but again, if you flip it around, you don't see that at all. To light up these crystal trophies, we're going to be using the same RGB LED module that I showed you in the previous project example, and I'm also going to reuse the 3D printed trophy base with the brass engraved nameplate. As an alternative to the RGB lights, I personally think a warm LED light is the best choice for these crystal glass trophies. Now this is just personal preference, but I think it has a very classy look to it and you can't go wrong. I'll put links to those warm LED light modules in the video description down below as well. If you like this project, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my next video on engraving various types of glass with a blue diode laser. That's it for this video. I hope it inspires you to make something special for that extraordinary mother in your life, and I hope you caught all of the details to enter that exclusive xTool contest. Go follow them on Instagram at xToolOfficial. You can find me on Instagram at EmbraceMaking. Check the links in the video description down below for everything in this video, and check out my website, embracemaking.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck with that contest, and happy upcoming Mother's Day.